Commander Vextora stood motionless on the observation deck, 3 pairs of violet eyes fixed on the blue-green world rotating slowly beneath the flagship. The Dominion vessel Inevitable Conquest hung in geosynchronous orbit above what the natives called North America, though such primitive designations would soon be irrelevant. "Beautiful planet," remarked Lieutenant Kraz, mandibles clicking with anticipation. "Shame we have to burn half of it." "Beauty is irrelevant," Vextora replied, antennae twitching slightly. "Resource assessment confirms what our preliminary scans indicated. This world contains the largest accessible concentration of heavy metals and rare minerals in the sector. The inhabitants are unfortunate collateral." Kraz rubbed his forelimbs together, producing a sound like sandpaper on stone. "Have you reviewed the threat assessment, Commander?" Vextora made the Dominion gesture of dismissal, a quick flick of his middle limbs. "Thoroughly. Their most advanced weapons are laughably primitive. Nuclear fission devices, chemically propelled projectiles, and rudimentary energy weapons. Their orbital capabilities are negligible. They have barely touched their own moon. Yet they call themselves the apex predator of their world," Kraz said with what passed for a chuckle in Dominion physiology. A series of rapid clicks and wheezes. "A world of prey animals would consider a slightly faster prey animal apex." Vextora remarked dryly, "Lead Admiral Zorvak wants this conquest to proceed with maximum efficiency. The Emperor grows impatient for new resources." A soft chime interrupted their conversation as Science Officer Malahern entered the observation deck. Unlike the heavily armored exoskeletons of the military caste, her translucent carapace revealed the complex network of bioluminescent organs that marked the scientific elite. "Commander," she said, bowing slightly, "the preliminary infiltration teams have completed their assessment." Vextora turned away from the view screen. "And anything that contradicts our intelligence?" Malazarn projected a holographic display from her auxiliary appendage. "Not significantly. The humans are divided into approximately 200 political entities they call nations. Their military forces are similarly fragmented with minimal unified command structure. Communication technology is primitive but widespread. They possess a rudimentary global information network." "Weaknesses?" their story inquired, mandibles twitching with interest. "Many," Malahern replied. "Their population centers are highly vulnerable. Most of their infrastructure depends on electrical systems that can be disabled with targeted electromagnetic pulses. Their food production is centralized. They have minimal orbital defensive capabilities." Kraz clicked his mandibles in anticipation. "This will be even easier than the Tellurian conquest." Vextora remained motionless, all 6 eyes still fixed on the planet. "Perhaps too easy. That concerns me." "Commander?" Malahern tilted her head in the Dominion gesture of confusion. "Species don't evolve to dominate their worlds without certain qualities," Vextora said slowly. "The intelligence reports indicate these humans advanced from primitive tool use to spaceflight in less than 10,000 years. That's unprecedented in any species we have encountered." Kraz made a dismissive gesture. "Yet they waste their resources on internal conflicts and frivolous entertainment. Half their planet remains in primitive conditions despite their capabilities." "Nevertheless," Vextora continued, "I want constant assessment during the conquest. If these humans display any unexpected capabilities, I want to know immediately." A harsh alarm suddenly blared through the command deck. The tactical display flashed urgent warning symbols. "Commander," the tactical officer called out, "sensors detect multiple nuclear launches from the surface. Primitive fission devices, but they have targeted our secondary vessels with remarkable accuracy." Vextora's antennae stiffened in surprise. "Impossible. Our stealth systems have been compromised somehow," the tactical officer interrupted. "The humans are attempting to communicate on all frequencies." "Show me," Vextora commanded, striding to the central command console. The main view screen flickered, revealing the face of a human female. Her skin was dark brown, her head adorned with tightly coiled black hair styled close to her scalp. She wore what appeared to be a military uniform with insignia Vextora didn't recognize. "Attention unidentified vessels," the human said, her voice translated through the ship's linguistics processor. "This is General Amara Jackson of the United Earth Defense Force. We have detected your presence and identified your vessels as non-terrestrial in origin. Your positioning suggests hostile intent. We request immediate communication and clarification of your purpose here." Failure to respond will be considered an act of war. Vextora stared at the screen, mandibles slack with shock. United Earth Defense Force. Our intelligence indicated no such organization existed. And how did they detect us through our stealth fields? Unknown, Commander. Mala R replied, her appendages moving rapidly across her data terminals. But their nuclear launches were precisely targeted. They knew exactly where our support vessels were positioned. Kraz chittered nervously. This was not in the threat assessment. Clearly, Vextara said coldly. It seems our intelligence is outdated. Signal the fleet. Begin the attack immediately. We cannot allow them time to organize further defenses. Should we respond to their communication? Mala Arn asked. No, Vextora replied. Let our weapons be our response. Execute attack pattern Dominion Prime. Target their largest population centers and military installations first. The tactical officer's appendages flew across the control surfaces, commencing attack sequence, orbital bombardment platforms deploying. Vextora returned his gaze to the view screen, watching as the first of the Dominion's planet cracker beams lanced toward Earth, a brilliant purple beam of concentrated energy that parted clouds and atmosphere on its way to the surface. First strike is away, reported the tactical officer. Impact in 3, 2. The beam struck somewhere in what humans called the eastern United States. The view screen automatically dimmed as an enormous flash erupted from the impact point, followed by a spreading circle of destruction. Direct hit on Washington, D.C., reported the tactical officer. Estimated 97% destruction of target. Begin full deployment, ordered Vextora. All ships, commence bombardment according to the predetermined grid pattern. More beams stabbed down from the Dominion fleet, striking cities across the planet. Moscow, Beijing, London, Tokyo, Delhi. Each impact registered as another successful strike in the tactical display. Resistant? Vextora inquired. Minimal and ineffective, replied Krez, now monitoring the defense systems. Their primitive aircraft attempt to reach our altitude but cannot. Their missile systems are largely neutralized by our defensive fields. Curious, Maloran observed. Their initial detection capabilities suggested more advanced technology than what we are observing now. Vextora's antennae twitched. Continue the bombardment. Prepare ground forces for deployment once we have neutralized their major defense installations. For 6 hours the Dominion fleet rained destruction upon Earth. Cities burned. Military bases were reduced to craters. Communication networks collapsed. The once blue planet became increasingly obscured by smoke and dust as the attack continued. In the command center of what remained of NORAD, deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Amara Jackson surveyed the devastation reports with grim determination. Status, she demanded of her haggard staff. Colonel Patel, her second-in-command, looked up from his terminal. It's bad, General. We have lost contact with most major cities. The EMP effects from their weapons have knocked out power grids across the hemisphere. Casualty estimates are... He paused, swallowing hard. In the hundreds of millions already. Jackson's face remained impassive, though her eyes betrayed her anguish. And Project Lazarus, still operational, Patel confirmed. The hardened facilities were designed to withstand precisely this scenario. Dr. Haraway reports they are ready whenever you give the order. And the Sentinel network, partially operational. We lost 30% of the satellites in the initial exchange, but the remaining units are intact and awaiting deployment authorization. Jackson nodded slowly. What about the Prometheus protocol? Patel's expression darkened. That's our last option, General. Once initiated, there's no turning back. I'm aware, Colonel. She turned to face the massive display showing the positions of the alien fleet. But they have already killed hundreds of millions. If we wait, there might not be a humanity left to save. She straightened her shoulders. Send the authorization code. Activate Prometheus protocol. Yes, General. Patel turned to his console, entering a complex sequence of commands. Prometheus protocol activated. May God help us all. High above Earth, Commander Vextora was reviewing the invasion progress when an urgent alert sounded. Commander, called the sensor officer, detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's polar regions. Elaborate, Vextor demanded. Unknown technology, the officer replied, mandibles clicking in confusion. Energy patterns don't match anything in our database. weight detecting massive power surge from beneath the surface at multiple points globally. Mala Arn rushed to the sensor station. This can't be right. These readings suggest energy manipulation beyond anything their technological level should be capable of. Before Vextora could respond, a blinding flash erupted from Earth's North Pole, followed immediately by another from the South Pole. Beams of intense blue-white energy shot upward, connecting at some point in orbit and then expanding outward in a spherical wave. Evasive maneuvers. Vextora shouted. All ships, maximum defensive shields. The energy wave rolled outward from Earth, engulfing the nearest Dominion vessels. As it touched each ship, their systems flickered and died. Vessels began to drift, powerless, in Earth orbit. What is happening? Kraz demanded, panic evident in his voice. Some kind of electromagnetic weapon, Mala Arn suggested, frantically analyzing the data. But far more sophisticated than anything we believed they possessed. The energy wave continued expanding, disabling ship after ship. The inevitable conquest, with its more advanced shielding, resisted longer than the others, but eventually succumbed. Regency lights flickered on as main power failed. Status report. Vextora demanded. All systems compromised, reported the engineering officer. Propulsion offline, weapons offline, communications offline, life support functioning on emergency power only. Vextora turned to Mala Arn. Explanation? The science officer's bioluminescent organs pulsed with agitation. It appears to be a targeted energy weapon designed specifically to disrupt our technology. The modulation matches our quantum field signatures exactly. They shouldn't have been able to analyze our technology so quickly, let alone develop a countermeasure. They were prepared for us, Vextora realized, his voice hollow. This wasn't a hastily assembled defense. They knew we were coming. A new alert sounded on the emergency systems. Commander, called the tactical officer, detecting multiple launches from Earth's surface. Thousands of objects ascending rapidly. The view screen, operating on minimal power, showed swarms of small craft rising from Earth's atmosphere. Unlike the primitive aircraft they had easily neutralized earlier, these vehicles moved with impossible speed and agility. What are those? Kraz asked, mandibles trembling. Unknown design, Mala Arn replied. They appear to be drones of some kind, but far more advanced than anything our intelligence suggested they possessed. The swarms of drones approached the disabled Dominion fleet. Rather than attacking, they surrounded each vessel, attaching themselves to the hulls. They are boarding us, Vextora realized. Prepare for internal defense. All combat personnel to defensive positions. Throughout the inevitable conquest, Dominion soldiers rushed to repel boarders, but the expected assault never came. Instead, the ship's systems began to reactivate one by one, but not under Dominion control. Commander, reported the systems officer, our network is being invaded by an unknown intelligence. It's bypassing all security protocols as if they don't exist. The main view screen flickered to life unbidden. The face of General Amara Jackson appeared once more. Commander Vextora of the Dominion Conquest Fleet, she said, her expression grim but satisfied. Your vessels are now under our control. Your weapons systems have been neutralized. Your propulsion systems are locked. Your communications have been severed. You are, to use a human phrase, at our mercy. Vextora stared at the screen in disbelief. How do you know my name? How are you doing this? Jackson's expression didn't change. We have known about the Dominion for decades, Commander. We have studied your technology, your tactics, your biology. We have prepared for this day since your scout ships first entered our solar system 50 years ago. Impossible, Vextora whispered. Our stealth technology is based on phase-shifted quantum fields, Jackson interrupted. Impressive, but not undetectable once you know what to look for. We tracked your initial reconnaissance missions. We captured and studied your technology. We have been watching you watch us, Commander. Mala Arn stepped forward. But your civilization shows no evidence of such advanced capabilities. Your visible technology is primitive compared to ours. Jackson actually smiled. Then a cold, predatory expression, of course it is. That was intentional. We maintained our public technology at a level that would appear non-threatening. Meanwhile, our real advancements remained hidden, waiting for exactly this scenario. Why? Vextora demanded. Why the deception? Because we studied your species as thoroughly as you studied ours, Jackson replied. The Dominion doesn't negotiate with species it considers inferior. You only respect strength, so we gave you the illusion of weakness while preparing our defenses. Kraz chittered nervously. What happens now? Now, Jackson said, her voice hardening, we discuss terms. You have killed millions of our people today. The usual human response would be to exterminate you in return. Vextora's mandibles clenched in resignation. Death was preferable to the shame of such absolute defeat. However, Jackson continued, unlike the Dominion, we don't believe in genocide as a first resort. We are offering you a choice. Surrender and withdraw from our solar system permanently, or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide. The screen went dark. The command deck fell silent. Vextora stood motionless, all 6 eyes fixed on the blank screen. Commander, Kraz ventured after several moments. Your orders. Vextora turned slowly to face his officers. Contact Fleet Admiral Zorvac. We must warn the Dominion about what we have encountered here. Malaran's bioluminescent organs pulsed with distress. Communications are still non-functional, Commander. We cannot reach the homeworld. Then we have no choice but to accept their terms, Vextora said, his voice hollow with defeat. Surrender, Kraz exclaimed, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. To primitives? The Dominion has never surrendered. And the Dominion has never encountered a species like this, Vextora replied. They allowed us to strike first, Lieutenant. They watched as we devastated their cities and killed their people, yet they had the power to stop us at any time. They wanted us to reveal our capabilities. They wanted us to commit fully to the attack. A test? Malaran realized, her scientific mind grasping the implication. They were assessing our technology and tactics before revealing their true capabilities. Precisely, Vextora confirmed. And now they hold our entire fleet hostage. Even if we could somehow regain control of our ships, their hidden weapons would destroy us before we could escape the system. Another alert sounded. The view screen activated again, this time showing a different human, male with pale skin and facial hair around the mouth and chin, wearing what appeared to be a laboratory coat rather than a military uniform. Commander Vextora, the human said, I am Dr. Victor Haraway, Chief Science Officer of the United Earth Defense Force. I'm contacting you separately from General Jackson to provide some additional context that might inform your decision. Vextora regarded the human warily. Speak, then. Our analysis of your ship logs indicates that the Dominion has conquered 17 other spacefaring civilizations. Haraway said, each followed a similar pattern: initial reconnaissance, assessment of threat level, sudden overwhelming attack. In every case, the species you encountered revealed their full technological capabilities immediately, allowing you to gauge their threat level accurately. Your point, human? Vextora asked impatiently. Humanity is different, Haraway replied. We have a long history of deception in warfare. From the Trojan horse to the inflatable tanks of Operation Fortitude, from the breaking of the Enigma code to the development of stealth technology, we have always understood that appearing weaker than you are can be a strategic advantage. Malaran moved closer to the screen. Your development curve is impossible. No species advances from primitive technology to quantum manipulation in such a short period. Haraway smiled slightly. We had help. Not all species encountered by the Dominion were completely destroyed. Survivors found their way to Earth over the centuries. We provided sanctuary in exchange for knowledge. Vextora's antennae stiffened in shock. The refugee species, here, integrated into our society. Haraway confirmed. Their knowledge accelerated our development enormously, but more importantly, they warned us about the Dominion. They gave us time to prepare. The implication was staggering. For centuries, the Dominion had assumed any survivors of their conquests had perished in deep space or on inhospitable worlds. The idea that they had found sanctuary on Earth, that they had shared their technology and knowledge with humans. I tell you this, Haraway continued, so you understand that your defeat today is not a fluke or a temporary setback. It is the result of decades of preparation by a coalition of species united against Dominion expansion. Your conquest ends here, Commander Vextora. The screen went dark again. Vextora turned to his officers, seeing the same shock and dismay in their postures that he felt himself. Everything they had believed about their superiority, about the inevitability of Dominion conquest, had been shattered in a single day. "Prepare a response," Vextora said finally. "We accept their terms. The Dominion fleet will withdraw from Earth's space immediately upon the restoration of our systems." "And when we return to the homeworld," Kraz asked, "what do we tell the Emperor?" Vextora's mandibles clicked in a gesture of grim determination. "The truth, Lieutenant, that we encountered a species unlike any the Dominion has faced before. A species that knew us before we knew them. A species that let us strike first, knowing it would be our last." As the officers dispersed to prepare for their humiliating withdrawal, Vextora remained on the command deck, staring at the view screen now showing the planet below. Smoke and dust partially obscured its blue-green surface, evidence of the destruction the Dominion had caused. Yet somehow, in spite of that devastation, Vextora could not escape the feeling that the humans had won a victory far greater than merely repelling an invasion. They had shattered the myth of Dominion invincibility, and somewhere deep in his consciousness, an unfamiliar sensation took root, a sense that perhaps, for the first time in its long history of conquest, the Dominion had finally encountered its match. The first strike had indeed been theirs, but the last breath, the final word in this confrontation, belonged to humanity. And Vextora suspected it was just the beginning of a much longer conversation. 3 standard cycles had passed since the Dominion fleet's humiliating retreat from Earth. Commander Vextor stood before the Imperial Judgment Chamber, 6 eyes fixed on the towering form of Emperor Korvakash. The chamber, hewn from the gleaming black stone of the homeworld's sacred mountains, was designed to intimidate the accused, stood on a narrow platform suspended over a seemingly bottomless abyss, while the Emperor and the tribunal of elders perched on elevated platforms, looking down upon the supplicant. "You have failed the Dominion, Commander." The Emperor's voice boomed through the chamber, each word punctuated by the rhythmic clicking of his ceremonial mandibles. 17 civilizations have fallen before our might. 17 worlds now serve as resource bases for our continued expansion. Yet you return from Earth not with tales of conquest, but with excuses for defeat. Vextora maintained perfect stillness, a posture of respect in Dominion culture. "Not excuses, Your Imperial Majesty. Facts. The humans were prepared for our arrival. They had knowledge of our technology, our tactics, our biology. They allowed us to strike first, knowing they could neutralize our fleet at will." "Impossible," spat High Elder Kazavor, the oldest and most respected of the tribunal. "No primitive species could develop such capabilities independently." "They did not develop them independently," High Elder Vextora replied. "According to their science officer, Earth has been harboring refugees from our previous conquests. These species shared their technology and knowledge, accelerating human development." A ripple of chittering disbelief passed through the tribunal. The Emperor's antennae flattened against his carapace, a sign of extreme displeasure. "You expect us to believe that remnants of defeated civilizations found their way across vast interstellar distances to this backwater planet, and that these disparate species somehow cooperated to create a defense against the Dominion? Preposterous." Vextora's mandibles twitched slightly. "The evidence is irrefutable, Your Majesty. Their countermeasures were specifically designed to target our quantum field technologies. Their knowledge of our fleet deployments was precise. They even knew my name and rank before I communicated with them." The Emperor rose to his full height, towering over the assembly. "And yet you chose surrender over glorious death in battle. You have brought shame upon the Dominion. I chose to bring vital intelligence back to the homeworld." Vextora countered, his tone respectful but firm. "The humans represent a threat unlike any we have encountered before. They possess technology that neutralized our entire fleet within moments. They could have destroyed us, yet they offered terms that suggests either remarkable restraint or confidence that they hold an even greater advantage." Fleet Admiral Zorvak stepped forward from his position among the military commanders. Unlike the Emperor and elders, whose ceremonial armor gleamed with precious metals and jewels, Zorvak wore the battle-scarred carapace of a veteran warrior. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice a low rumble, "I have reviewed Commander Vextora's tactical data. While his decision to retreat rather than fight to the death is unusual, the information he has brought back is indeed disturbing. The humans demonstrated capabilities far beyond what our intelligence suggested they possessed. So you support this coward's actions?" the Emperor demanded. Zorvak's mandibles clicked deliberately. I support the Dominion's continued expansion, Your Majesty. If these humans possess technology that can neutralize our fleets, we must adapt our approach. A temporary strategic withdrawal is preferable to losing our entire invasion force with no opportunity to develop countermeasures. The Emperor's compound eyes gleamed with fury, but he could not dismiss Zorvak's logic entirely. The Admiral had led the Dominion to victory in countless campaigns. His tactical acumen was legendary. Very well, the Emperor conceded reluctantly. Commander Vextora, you are spared execution. Instead, you will lead a special reconnaissance mission back to the human system. You will gather detailed intelligence on their true capabilities and weaknesses, and you will do so with absolute stealth, no engagement, no detection. Vextora bowed deeply. As you command, Your Majesty. Fleet Admiral, the Emperor continued, turning to Zorvak, prepare a contingency fleet. If Commander Vextora's mission confirms that these humans truly represent a significant threat, we must be prepared to commit overwhelming force to their elimination. It will be done, Your Majesty, Zorvak replied with a bow. As the Imperial Judgment Chamber emptied, Vextora found himself approached by Science Director Peltorak, head of the Dominion Advanced Research Division. A Science Director's translucent carapace pulsed with soft bioluminescence, a sign of intense curiosity. Walk with me, Commander, Peltorak said quietly. I believe we have much to discuss regarding these unusual humans. Together they moved through the sweeping corridors of the Imperial Palace, their exoskeletons clicking softly against the polished stone floors. The Emperor does not fully grasp the implications of what you encountered, Peltorak said when they were safely out of earshot of others. But I do. If these humans have indeed provided sanctuary to survivors of our conquests, if they have combined technologies from multiple civilizations, then they may possess capabilities beyond even what they demonstrated against our fleet, Vextora finished. Precisely. Peltorak's antennae twitched thoughtfully. I have analyzed the data from your ship's sensors. The energy wave they deployed against your fleet utilized quantum field manipulation principles that even our scientists have only theorized about. It suggests not merely advanced technology, but a fundamental understanding of physics that may exceed our own. Vextora felt an unfamiliar sensation, something akin to what humans might call dread.
What are you suggesting, Director?
I am suggesting, Commander, that your reconnaissance mission may be more important than even the Emperor realizes. We need to understand not just their military capabilities, but the full extent of their scientific knowledge. If they truly have integrated the technological insights of multiple species, they could represent an existential threat to the Dominion itself, Vextora concluded. Peltorak's mandibles clicked in agreement. Indeed, for the first time in our history, we may have encountered a species that could potentially defeat us in open warfare. The Emperor would never accept such a possibility, Vextora noted. Which is why your mission must succeed, Commander. The Dominion's survival may depend on accurate intelligence about these humans. The Emperor believes they are merely an unusually resilient obstacle to our expansion. I suspect they may be much more than that. Vextora's compound eyes fixed on the Science Director. You almost sound as if you admire them. Admiration is irrelevant, Peltorak replied. But I recognize the potential significance of what they have accomplished. No single species has ever managed to halt Dominion expansion. If these humans have found a way to unite the knowledge and technologies of multiple civilizations, then they have done what the Dominion has failed to do, Vextora realized. We conquer other species and strip their worlds of resources, but we rarely integrate their technologies into our own, because we have never needed to, Peltorak said simply. Our technology has always been superior to that of the species we encounter, but perhaps that assumption of superiority has become our greatest weakness. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Admiral Zorvak, his armored carapace gleaming in the pale light of the corridor. Commander, he said briskly, report to Hangar Bay 7 immediately. Your reconnaissance vessel is being prepared. You depart for the human system within 3 standard hours. So soon? Vextora asked, mandibles clicking in surprise. The Emperor is eager for results. Zorvak replied, his tone suggesting this was an understatement. You will command our most advanced stealth vessel, the Shadow Whisper. Its phase-shifted quantum fields are an entire generation beyond those the humans previously detected. You will observe from the outer reaches of their system and deploy long-range sensor probes to gather intelligence. And if we are detected, Vextora asked, then you will activate the vessel's self-destruct sequence rather than allow it to be captured. Zarvik stated flatly, the technology aboard the Shadow Whisper must not fall into human hands. I understand, Admiral. Good. Oh, and Commander? Zorvik added, his voice dropping to a near whisper. While the Emperor and the Tribunal are focused on the military threat these humans pose, I share Director Peltorak's interest in their scientific capabilities. Pay particular attention to any evidence of how they have managed to integrate diverse technologies. Such knowledge could prove valuable, regardless of how the Dominion ultimately deals with the human problem. Vextora's antennae stiffened slightly at the implication. Was the Fleet Admiral suggesting that the Dominion might learn from humans rather than simply conquering them? Such thinking bordered on heresy. I will gather all relevant intelligence. Admiral, he replied carefully. See that you do, Zervak said, before continuing down the corridor. When he was gone, Peltorak turned back to Vextora. The Admiral is more perceptive than most of the military caste. He understands that knowledge can be as valuable as conquest. Perhaps, Vextora conceded, but my mission remains clear. Gather intelligence on human capabilities and weaknesses to facilitate eventual conquest. Of course, Commander. Peltorak agreed, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. Now you should prepare for your departure, and remember, observe everything. The smallest details about these humans may prove the most significant. 3 standard weeks later, the Shadow Whisper hung motionless at the edge of the Sol system, its advanced stealth systems rendering it virtually undetectable by conventional means. Commander Vextora studied the sensor readings with growing unease. This makes no sense, he muttered, mandibles clicking in frustration. Lieutenant Mazarik, his second-in-command for this mission, looked up from her own console. What troubles you, Commander? These energy readings from Earth, Vextora explained, highlighting several anomalous patterns on the display. They suggest technological activity far beyond what we observed during the initial invasion. Yet much of their visible infrastructure appears unchanged. Perhaps they are concealing their true capabilities, Mazarik suggested, as they did before. Perhaps, Vextora agreed. But these readings indicate enormous power generation, comparable to or exceeding our own planetary facilities. Yet we detect no evidence of the expected infrastructure. It's as if they are generating this energy invisibly. Could our sensors be malfunctioning? Mazarik asked. Unlikely. We have run multiple diagnostics. Vextora's antennae twitched thoughtfully. Deploy the stealth probes. Focus on the regions showing the highest energy outputs. I want visual confirmation of what's happening on the surface. Deploying probes now, Commander. The Shadow Whisper released a dozen microscopic probes, each equipped with the same advanced stealth technology as the ship itself. Propelled by miniature quantum drives, they accelerated toward Earth, programmed to position themselves over specific regions of interest. Hours later, the first visual data began streaming back to the ship. Vextora and his officers gathered around the main display, analyzing the images with increasing confusion. This can't be right, Science Officer Trillanex said, manipulating the display to enhance a particular image. According to our sensors, this region should contain a massive power generation facility. Yet we see nothing but primitive agricultural activity. The display showed what appeared to be human food production fields, orderly rows of plants stretching across the landscape. Nothing about the scene suggested advanced technology. Check beneath the surface, Vextora ordered. Use deep scanning frequencies. Trelentax adjusted the probe's sensors. The image shifted, penetrating below ground level. And there it was, a vast complex of structures extending deep beneath the seemingly innocent agricultural fields. Energy signatures pulsed through the underground facility, confirming enormous power generation. They have hidden their entire technological infrastructure underground, Vextora realized. What we see on the surface is misdirection, a facade of primitive development maintained to deceive observers. But why maintain such deception after revealing their true capabilities during our attack? Mazarak asked. Because they don't know who else might be watching. Asakthara replied slowly. The Dominion isn't the only spacefaring empire in the galaxy. By maintaining the appearance of a primitive civilization, they avoid attracting attention while continuing to develop their true capabilities in secret. Clever, Trellanax admitted, mandibles clicking in reluctant admiration. And concerning, if they have concealed this much from us, what else might they be hiding? That's what we are here to discover, Vextora said. Continue scanning. I want a complete analysis of their hidden infrastructure, and focus particularly on any evidence of alien influence or technology. If they have truly been harboring refugees from our conquests, there should be signs of non-human design principles or materials. For days, the probes continued their silent surveillance, gathering terabytes of data on human activities. The picture that emerged was increasingly disturbing. Beneath the visible facade of a moderately advanced civilization lay a vast hidden infrastructure of extraordinary technological sophistication. Power generation facilities, manufacturing complexes, research laboratories, all concealed underground or within seemingly primitive structures. But most alarming were the orbital findings. The probes detected a network of stealth satellites surrounding Earth, hundreds of platforms that remained invisible to standard sensors. Only the Shadow Whisper's advanced detection systems could perceive them at all. These platforms, Vextora said, studying the orbital data, they appear to be some kind of defensive grid, similar to the technology they used to disable our fleet, but far more numerous and apparently permanent. A planetary defense shield, Mazarik suggested, designed to neutralize any approaching vessels with technologies similar to ours. Not just similar to ours, Trellanax corrected, analyzing the sensor readings. These platforms incorporate elements that appear adapted from at least 3 distinct technological lineages, including what appears to be modified Zerian phase shift technology. Vextora's antennae stiffened. Zerian? But we conquered the Zerian collective over 200 cycles ago. Their homeworld was reduced to a mining outpost. Evidently some Zerians escaped, Trellanax replied, and found sanctuary with these humans. This confirms what their science officer claimed, Vextora said grimly. Earth has become a haven for survivors of our conquests, and they have combined their knowledge to create defenses specifically designed to counter Dominion technology. Commander, called the communications officer suddenly, we are detecting an unusual transmission from Earth. It doesn't match any known human communication protocols. Let me hear it, Vextora ordered. The ship's speakers crackled with a series of rapid clicks and whistles, a sound that froze every Dominion officer on the bridge. That's impossible, Mazarik whispered, mandibles trembling. That's a Dominion military frequency, our most secure communication protocol. Attention Dominion vessel, came a voice over the speakers, speaking perfect Dominion language, with the precise intonation patterns of the military caste. This is General Amara Jackson of the United Earth Defense Force. Your stealth technology is impressive, but inadequate. We have been tracking your Shadow Whisper since it entered our system. Vextora stared at the communications panel in horror. The humans had detected them despite their advanced stealth technology, and somehow they were communicating on a frequency that should have been known only to the Dominion military. All defensive systems online, he ordered. Prepare for emergency quantum jump, Commander. The voice continued calmly. Before you attempt to flee or activate your self-destruct sequence, I suggest you consider 2 facts. First, we are not currently targeting your vessel with weapons. If we wished to destroy you, we would have done so already. Second, we have important information for you to convey to your Emperor. The Vextora hesitated. Protocol demanded immediate retreat or self-destruction to prevent capture. Yet the human's words gave him pause. They claimed to have information for the Emperor, information that could potentially be crucial to the Dominion's approach to this unusual species. I'm listening, he said finally. Excellent, Jackson replied. We are transmitting a data packet to your vessel. It contains evidence you may find, illuminating, regarding certain aspects of your own civilization that have been concealed from you. What kind of evidence? Vextora demanded. Historical records, Jackson answered. Recovered from the archives of species conquered by the Dominion, records that tell a very different story about your empire's origins than the one you have been taught. Trellanax studied his console. Commander, we are indeed receiving a data transmission. It appears to contain historical documents, star charts, and what seem to be genetic analyses. This is some kind of deception. Mazarik insisted. An attempt to sow confusion and discord. Perhaps, Vextora conceded, or perhaps not. Science officer, analyze the data. Determine if there's any validity to their claims. Commander, Jackson's voice continued, we understand your skepticism, but consider this: how are we able to communicate with you on a secure Dominion frequency? How did we neutralize your fleet so effectively during your initial attack? The answer is simple: we know far more about the Dominion than you realize, including truths that your own leadership has kept hidden for generations. Vextora's mandibles clicked in agitation. What truths? That the Dominion itself was once the victim of conquest, not the conqueror. Jackson replied that your species was genetically modified by a now extinct civilization called the Precursors, modified specifically to serve as warriors and resource gatherers. Your entire empire, Commander Vextora, was built on a foundation of engineered servitude. Trillanax looked up from his analysis of the transmitted data. Commander, these genetic analyses, they appear to show evidence of artificial manipulation in our species' genome. Markers that don't follow natural evolutionary patterns. Impossible, Vextora insisted. Our history is clear. The Dominion arose naturally as the apex species of our homeworld. Our expansion into space was the natural progression of our evolutionary superiority. A convenient narrative, Jackson replied, but false. Your species was engineered by the Precursors approximately 30,000 of your cycles ago. When the Precursor civilization collapsed due to internal conflicts, your ancestors seized control of their technology and began their own campaign of conquest, mimicking the very masters who created them. Vextora felt as if the deck was shifting beneath him. Could this possibly be true? Could the entire foundation of Dominion society, their belief in their natural superiority, their manifest destiny to rule the galaxy, be based on a lie? Even if what you say is true, he said finally, why reveal this to us? What do you gain? Understanding, Jackson answered simply. We want you to comprehend that the cycle of conquest and domination can be broken. The species that have found sanctuary on Earth have learned to cooperate rather than compete, to share knowledge rather than hoard it, to build together rather than destroy individually. It's a different model of interspecies relations, one that has allowed us to create defenses strong enough to halt even the Dominion's advance. Trillanax continued analyzing the data. Commander, there are star charts here showing what appear to be the locations of Precursor ruins, coordinates for sites that aren't in any of our databases. Places where you can find evidence to verify everything we have told you. Jackson explained, we don't expect you to simply accept our claims, Commander. We expect you to investigate them, to question the foundations of your society that have led to countless genocides across the galaxy. Vextora's mind raced. If he returned to the homeworld with this information, he would likely be executed for treason simply for bringing it back. The Emperor and the Tribunal would never accept such a radical challenge to Dominion mythology. Yet if there was any truth to these human claims, why not simply destroy us? He asked finally. If you have been aware of our presence all along, why allow this conversation at all? Because extermination is your way, Commander, not ours. Jackson replied. We defended ourselves against your attack. Yes. But our goal isn't the destruction of the Dominion, it's the end of Dominion expansion through conquest. We believe that when presented with the truth, at least some portion of our society might question the path you have been on for thousands of cycles. You expect us to simply abandon our entire way of life based on historical documents and genetic analyses? As Eric asked incredulously. No, Jackson admitted. We expect most of your leadership to reject this information outright. But we also know that civilizations change when enough individuals begin to question fundamental assumptions. Even the Dominion is not monolithic, Commander Vextora. There are factions within your society, scientists, philosophers, even military officers who have long harbored doubts about the endless cycle of conquest. Vextora thought of Science Director Pelturak, of Fleet Admiral Zorovac's unusual interest in human technological integration rather than simple conquest. There were indeed those within Dominion society who might be receptive to a different perspective, particularly when faced with a species that had successfully halted their military advance. You still haven't answered my question, he insisted. Why let us leave with this information? Why not simply capture or destroy our vessel? Because that would only reinforce the Dominion narrative that all other species are threats to be eliminated. Jackson explained. Instead, We are offering you a choice, Commander. The same choice we offered after neutralizing your invasion fleet. You can return to your homeworld with the information we have provided, knowing that it may lead to significant upheaval in your society. Or you can activate your self-destruct sequence now, ensuring that this knowledge never reaches the Dominion. And if I return with this information and the Emperor simply orders an even larger fleet to attack Earth, Vextora asked, then that fleet will meet the same fate as the first. Jackson replied, her voice hardening slightly. But with substantially greater losses, we showed restraint during your initial attack, Commander. We disabled rather than destroyed. We offered terms rather than annihilation. Do not mistake that restraint for weakness or limitation. The bridge fell silent as Vextor contemplated his options. The data the humans had provided challenged everything he had been taught about Dominion history and biology. If true, it meant that his entire civilization was built on a foundation of deception, a cruel irony for a species that prided itself on its natural superiority. I will take your information back to the Dominion, he decided finally. What happens afterward is beyond my control. We understand, Jackson replied. But remember this, Commander Vextora, Earth will remain a sanctuary for those who seek peace rather than conquest. Our defensive capabilities will continue to evolve, and our offer of a different path forward remains open to the Dominion, should your leadership ever reconsider the wisdom of endless war. The transmission ended. Vextora turned to his officers, seeing the same confusion and uncertainty in their postures that he felt himself. Set course for the homeworld, he ordered quietly. Maximum speed. The data from the humans? Trenelnax asked. Secure it in a quantum-locked storage module. Vextora replied. Limited access science team only, until we reach the homeworld. As the Shadow Whisper accelerated away from the Sol system, Vextora retreated to his private quarters. For the first time in his career, he found himself questioning not just a specific mission or strategy, but the entire purpose and foundation of the Dominion itself. If the humans were right, if the Dominion's biological superiority was not natural but engineered, if their destiny of conquest was merely perpetuating a cycle begun by their own former masters, then what purpose had the countless genocides served? What meaning could be found in an empire built on a fundamental lie? Yet he also recognized the opportunity presented by this encounter. The humans had demonstrated not just superior technology, but a fundamentally different approach to interspecies relations. They had united the knowledge and capabilities of multiple civilizations, creating something greater than any could have achieved alone. It was an approach that even pragmatic members of Dominion society like Admiral Zorvac and Director Peltorak might find compelling, particularly when faced with the reality that continued aggression against Earth would likely result in catastrophic defeat. The first strike against Earth had indeed been the Dominion's a strike based on arrogance and assumptions of superiority. But the last breath, the final word in this confrontation, belonged to humanity and their coalition of species. A breath not of victory through destruction, but of revelation through truth, and in that truth lay the possibility, however remote, of transformation. As the Shadow Whisper entered quantum jump, propelling itself back toward the Dominion homeworld, Vextora found himself contemplating a future very different from the one he had always imagined, a future where conquest gave way to cooperation, where domination yielded to dialogue, where the last breath of conflict became the first breath of something new. Whether the Dominion was capable of such a profound change remained to be seen, but for the first time in his life, Commander Vextora found himself hoping that it was the alternative. He now understood was not the glorious expansion of Dominion influence, but its inevitable destruction at the hands of a coalition that had found strength in diversity rather than dominance. The humans had let him go, carrying knowledge that could either transform his civilization or seal its fate. It was, he realized, the most powerful weapon they could possibly have deployed, not a beam of energy or a swarm of drones, but the simple, devastating truth.